On Thanksgiving, my son told me, "Don't come, Dad. My wife's family needs their own space." In their eyes, I was a worn-out old man, an inconvenience to be set aside. I said nothing. Instead, I went to an old friend's home where warmth, laughter, and quiet elegance reminded me of my worth. Later, I posted one simple photo, minutes after my phone erupted with 15 desperate calls. Let me know in the comments what time zone you're in, and tell me, have you ever discovered your family only contacts you when they need something? The cardigan felt softer than usual against my skin as I smoothed it down one final time. Navy blue wool, the one Ruth had picked out for me 3 Christmases ago at Nordstrom. "It brings out your eyes, Theron," she'd said, adjusting the collar with those gentle fingers I still missed every morning. I turned from the bedroom mirror and walked past her photograph on the hallway wall, our last Thanksgiving together, her smile radiant despite the chemo taking its toll. The empty chair at our dining room table had remained untouched for 3 years now, like a shrine I couldn't bring myself to disturb. But today felt different. Today I wouldn't be eating alone. "Dad, we'd love to have you for Thanksgiving," Marcellus had said Monday evening, his voice warm with genuine enthusiasm. "Kelia's making her famous cornbread stuffing, and we finally have enough space now that we moved to the bigger place in Westlake Hills." I'd felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was wound tight. My son wanted me there. After 3 years of polite distance and increasingly brief holiday calls, he was reaching out. Now, Thursday afternoon, sunlight streamed through the windows of my modest Tarrytown home, illuminating dust motes that danced between towering bookshelves. Volumes of American literature, poetry collections, and student papers from my decades at UT filled every available space. The house felt smaller, somehow cozier, knowing I'd soon be surrounded by family again. I picked up the gift bag from my kitchen counter, homemade pecan pralines wrapped in Ruth's favorite holiday paper. The recipe had been her grandmother's, passed down through 4 generations of Texas women. Kelia would appreciate the gesture, surely. These weren't store-bought offerings. They represented tradition, love, the kind of thoughtfulness that mattered. The shower had been longer than usual, the shave more careful. I'd selected my best khakis, the ones without the small ink stain near the pocket, and polished my leather shoes until they gleamed. At 62, I still believed in making an effort in showing respect through appearance. My phone rang just as I was checking my reflection one last time. "Dad." Marcellus's voice sounded strained, different from Monday's warmth. "Actually, there's been a change of plans." I felt my stomach drop, though I kept my voice steady. "Oh, nothing serious, I hope." "Well, it's just that—" He paused, and I could hear Kelia's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. "Kelia's family is driving up from Dallas. Her father just closed this huge real estate deal, and her brother's bringing his new girlfriend. She's some kind of investment banker." "That sounds lovely, son. I'm sure we'll all get along wonderfully." Another pause. Longer this time. "The thing is, Dad, they're successful business people. Really successful. And Kelia feels like having a retired professor there might make them uncomfortable. You know how it is with different social circles." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I maintained my professorial composure. "I see. She thinks it would be better if this Thanksgiving was just, people who really understand each other's world. People who speak the same language about investments and portfolios and that kind of thing." I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror, the carefully chosen cardigan, the polished shoes, the gift bag clutched in my hand, like evidence of my naive optimism. "Don't come, Dad. Kelia needs this to be, just successful people." The line went quiet, except for the sound of my own breathing. Through my front window, I could see neighbors heading to their cars with covered dishes and wine bottles. Families gathering for the holiday that celebrated gratitude and togetherness. "I understand, son," I said finally. "Family comes first." After the call ended, I remained standing in my hallway, still dressed in my best clothes, still holding Ruth's grandmother's pralines. The house felt larger now, emptier, filled with the echo of broken promises and the bitter taste of not being good enough for my own son's table. The phone's sharp ring shattered the silence of my empty house. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Theron, this is Alderic Vanner, my old colleague from UT's business school. We'd shared countless coffee conversations years ago debating Faulkner and free markets until the campus closed around us. He'd left academia to start his own company 15 years back." "Alderic," I said, surprised. "What a Paul Garcia mentioned you'd probably be spending today alone again. His voice carried the same warmth I remembered from our university days. Sharon and I decided that's not happening this year. Paul Garcia, my 73-year-old colleague who still kept tabs on everyone's lives like a small-town newspaper editor, he knew I'd spent the last 3 Thanksgivings by myself since Ruth passed, declining the occasional pity invitations that felt more like obligations. That's thoughtful, but I'm fine on my own. No, you're not, and neither would I be. Aldrich's tone grew firm. Sharon's making her famous turkey with bourbon glaze. Remember you said it reminded you of your grandmother's recipe at that Christmas party years ago. The fact that he remembered such a detail moved me. You have an excellent memory. I have excellent priorities. We're having people over at the Lake Travis house. Nothing fancy, just good food and conversation. We'd love your company. Lake Travis, Austin's most prestigious neighborhood. The old academic insecurity crept in. I don't want to impose on family time. Theron, his voice grew paternal. You are family to us. The kind that matters. The kind that chooses to care. When was the last time someone had called me family and meant it, besides Sharon's been wanting to discuss her new book club with you? She's tackling Morrison next month. Toni Morrison, one of my favorites to teach. Something dormant sparked to life. She has excellent taste. So do we, which is why we want you here. 4 o'clock work, 2847. Scenic Drive, right off 620. Stone gates, you can't miss them. After hanging up, I looked at my carefully chosen clothes. They felt different now, not like a costume for people who didn't want me, but like preparation for something promising. I grabbed my keys and the pralines. Ruth's grandmother's recipe deserved to be shared with people who might appreciate it. The drive took me through the heart of Austin past the university where I'd spent my career, over the Colorado River winding through the city like silver thread. November afternoon light slanted golden through my windshield. Scenic Drive's houses grew progressively larger. When I reached 2847, elegant limestone gates opened onto a curving driveway through mature oaks. The house beyond was substantial, but warm golden light spilling from every window. I parked between a Mercedes and BMW my Honda Civic, looking like a scholarship student at reunion, but through the windows I could hear genuine laughter, see animated conversations. This wasn't the small gathering I'd expected. At least 20 people moved through the rooms, and from what I could glimpse, they weren't just neighbors. Was that Margaret Sullivan, the arts columnist from the Austin American-Statesman, and David Rodriguez, the tech entrepreneur from Texas Monthly's recent cover? My hand hesitated on the doorbell. I wasn't walking into an intimate dinner. This appeared to be Austin's intellectual and business elite gathered in one place. What was a retired literature professor doing here? Sharon opened the door with a warm smile. Theron, come in, everyone's been looking forward to meeting you. Before I could process that statement, a woman in burgundy approached. Professor Veilhart, Jennifer Walsh. I took your American literature seminar in '94. I struggled to place her. Jennifer, the Flannery O'Connor paper on grotesque imagery. Her face lit up. You remember that class changed everything for me. I'm Austin's cultural arts director now, and I still use what you taught us about stories revealing truth. A tall man joined us. David Rodriguez. I never took your classes, but that guest lecture you gave at the business school 15 years ago about narrative structure and corporate communications. People still quote it. Changed how I approach presentations entirely. Business circles discuss my lectures. I couldn't hide my surprise. Your students run half the nonprofits in this city, said Margaret Sullivan, approaching with wine glass in hand. Austin American-Statesman. I've wanted to meet you for years. Aldrich appeared, pressing wine into my hand. Told you this was your crowd. Professor Veilhart, another voice called. A distinguished man in his 50s approached. Robert Morrison, Austin Literary Press. Half the writers we published studied under you. That's flattering. It's fact. We've been hoping you'd consider writing something yourself. Austin needs its intellectual history told by someone who lived it. You want me to write a memoir? Your perspective on how this city's literary culture developed. You've been at the center of Austin's intellectual renaissance for 30 years. More people joined the conversation. A tech entrepreneur credited my critical thinking approach. A nonprofit director quoted my lectures on social justice through literature. A city council member mentioned my influence on arts policy discussions. You really don't know, do you? Jennifer Walsh observed. The impact you've had on this city. I looked around the room at faces animated with genuine respect, at successful people who remembered my classes, my ideas, my influence. At my son's house, I was an embarrassing retired professor. Here I was, someone whose life's work mattered. Think about that memoir Robert Morrison pressed. Your story isn't just personal history, it's Austin's history. The story of how ideas shaped a city. A woman I recognized as the university's development director approached. Professor, we've been discussing endowing a scholarship in your name. Your former students want to fund it. My throat tightened. A scholarship in my name. We should get a photo, someone suggested. Capture this moment. As conversations continued around me, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the recognition that my life's work had meaning beyond classroom walls. These accomplished people didn't just tolerate my academic background, they celebrated it. For the first time since Ruth died, I felt like myself again. Not just a lonely widower, but Professor Theron Valahart, someone who had shaped minds and influenced a city. Maybe it was time to share this feeling with the world. Friday morning, sunlight streamed through my study windows, casting long shadows across the stack of ungraded papers I'd abandoned years ago, but couldn't bring myself to throw away. My coffee was still steaming when my phone began its relentless buzzing. 7 missed calls, 15 text messages, all from Marcellus. I'd posted a single photo last night, myself with Robert Morrison and Jennifer Walsh, the Lake Travis sunset glowing behind us. The caption was simple. Grateful for friends who see the value in a life spent teaching. My phone rang again. Marcellus. Dad. Thank God you answered. We've been trying to reach you all night. It's 8 in the morning, son. I was sleeping. We were worried sick. You didn't answer your phone, and then we saw your post. Worried sick. I set down my coffee cup. Like you were worried when you needed $18,000 for Kalia's marketing business, or $23,000 for your MBA program, or $31,000 for that once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. The silence stretched. Dad, that's different. We needed help. And now you need help again. Only this time it's not money. It's access to my friends. That's not fair. We just want to be part of your life. Part of my life. My academic mind, trained to analyze patterns, was suddenly applying that same scrutiny to my own bank statements. When was the last time you called me without needing something, Marcellus? Another pause. Dad, who were those people in the photo? Of course. No answer to my question, just deflection to what they really wanted. Friends. But Robert Morrison owns Austin Literary Press. Jennifer Walsh runs the city's arts programs. These are important people, Dad. Why didn't you tell us you knew people like this? I walked to my desk, pulled out my checkbook register. 4 years of entries since Ruth died. Emergency after emergency, crisis after crisis, always preceded by renewed family contact. Would it have mattered yesterday, son? When Kalia said I wasn't successful enough for her dinner table, I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself. From the embarrassment of having a retired professor for a father. I heard muffled conversation, then Kalia's voice. Theron, hi, it's Kalia. We just saw your Facebook post. You look so distinguished with those literary people. Yesterday I was too embarrassing for your guests. Today I look distinguished. Just like last month I was family when you needed $25,000 for the car down payment. Her voice tightened. That was a legitimate emergency. Like the roof repair that never happened, the medical bills that coincided with your vacation photos, the business opportunities that only existed in your imagination. I flipped through pages of my register. $127,000, 4 years. Every major transfer followed by weeks of family dinners until the money was spent and the calls stopped coming. We should discuss how these relationships could benefit everyone, Kelia continued. Family should help family, right? Family should help family. The same phrase she'd used every single time. How much, Kelia? What? How much have I given you? Take a guess. Silence. $127,000 in 4 years. Every emergency that brought you back into my life, every crisis that made you remember you had family. Marcellus's voice returned shaky. Dad, we've always been grateful. grateful enough to exclude me from Thanksgiving until you realized I might be useful again. The pattern was crystal clear now. Money equaled family time. Crisis equaled contact. And now that they thought I had valuable connections, suddenly I was worth their attention again. You didn't betray me once, son. You've been betraying me for 4 years. Every emergency, every crisis, every time you chose her manipulation over your father's dignity. That's not true. Then tell me, when was the last time we had dinner that didn't follow a bank transfer? The silence gave me my answer. My son, my own son, had been part of a systematic financial exploitation disguised as family emergencies. And now they wanted to exploit my professional connections the same way they'd exploited my savings. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was calculated, methodical, and it had cost me more than money. It had cost me 4 years of believing I still had a family who loved me. By 10 that evening, my home office looked like I was preparing for the most important research project of my academic career. Bank statements spread across my desk in chronological order. Phone records printed and highlighted a yellow legal pad filled with dates and amounts in my careful professor's handwriting. If I was going to understand what had happened to my family, I would approach it the same way I'd approached 30 years of literary analysis, with methodical precision and unflinching honesty. The first document was Ruth's final letter to me, written during her last week in hospice. I'd read it countless times, but tonight, one paragraph stood out with painful clarity. Watch for Kalia's influence on Marcellus. She sees dollar signs where she should see love. Don't let your generosity become their crutch, my darling. Sometimes the kindest thing is to say no. Ruth had seen it even then, the pattern I was only now beginning to understand. I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet with clinical detachment. Date, amount, stated reason, actual outcome, family contact frequency before and after. The data points began forming a picture that made my stomach clench. March 2021. $18,000 for Kalia's emergency marketing consultancy startup. 2 weeks of daily calls beforehand. 6 weeks of family dinners afterward, then silence until the next crisis. June 2021, $23,000 for Marcellus's MBA program. Dad, this could change our whole future. 3 months of regular contact, then back to holiday-only communication. September 2022, $31,000 for the once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity that would set us up for life. Pattern repeated intensive contact during the sustained attention during the gratitude period, then gradual withdrawal. I cross-referenced these dates with my phone records. The correlation was undeniable. Major financial requests coincided with renewed family intimacy. Bank transfers were followed by invitations to dinner calls, just to chat photos of the grandchildren I rarely saw otherwise. My academic mind, trained to spot patterns in centuries of literature, found the same narrative structure in my own life setup: crisis, resolution, abandonment. Rinse and repeat. I pulled out Ruth's old calendar, the one she'd kept during her final year. Her handwriting grew shakier as the months progressed, but her observations remained sharp. Kalia, asking about retirement accounts again. Marcellus seems nervous, another business idea. Theron too generous for his own good. She documented their manipulation even as she was dying. The most damning evidence came from my email archives. Every request followed the same script. Manufactured urgency, emotional manipulation, promises of changed behavior. Expressions of gratitude that lasted exactly as long as their financial needs were met. I found text message threads that revealed the truth behind their emergencies. The roof repair that became a kitchen renovation. The medical bills that coincided with vacation photos from Cabo. The car emergency that resulted in a brand new BMW in their driveway. By midnight, the pattern was irrefutable. 4 years. 16 separate crises, $127,000 in total. Each transaction followed by temporary family warmth, then gradual cooling until the next emergency arose. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the evidence spread before me. This wasn't a son struggling to make ends meet. This wasn't a family facing genuine hardships. This was systematic financial exploitation disguised as filial need. Ruth's voice echoed in my memory from one of our last conversations. They're not asking for help, Theron. They're training you to be their personal bank. I'd thought she was being harsh-colored by pain and medication. Now I realized she'd been trying to save me from exactly this moment, the moment when I would finally see that my generosity had been weaponized against me. The boy who used to proudly introduce me as my dad the professor had grown into a man who saw me as a financial resource to be managed. Every family dinner, every grandchildren's photo, every I love you, Dad, had been calculated to maintain my willingness to fund their lifestyle. I closed the laptop and gathered the documents into neat stacks. The evidence was overwhelming, the conclusion inescapable. I hadn't been helping family. I'd been enabling a sophisticated long-term financial manipulation. Tomorrow, I would take action to ensure this pattern never repeated itself. I researched estate attorneys with the same precision I'd once used for academic journals. 3 days of reviews led me to Susan Taylor's downtown Austin office. I need to protect my assets from financial manipulation, I told her, placing my evidence folder on her desk. Susan listened as I outlined the pattern: 4 years, $127,000 systematic exploitation disguised as family emergencies. Her questions were sharp, professional. Your current will leaves everything to Marcellus, written when I believed family meant love, not access to my bank account. Total assets, $1.4 million. House worth $400,000. Retirement accounts at $850 life insurance brings it to $1.4 total. What are your protection goals? I'd thought about this during sleepless nights since my discovery. I want 80% of my estate to go to organizations Ruth and I believed in, specifically Austin Animal Center, where she volunteered every Saturday during chemo treatments. UT's English Department Scholarship Fund for first-generation college students, something we started together. The Austin Public Library literacy programs we supported for 15 years. Those are meaningful choices. The remaining 20% for Marcellus. But I want it structured so the manipulation becomes impossible. No lump sums they can request for fake emergencies. No access Kalia can orchestrate. No borrowing against future distributions. Susan made detailed notes. A controlled trust would accomplish that. Monthly distributions of approximately $2,000. Enough for genuine needs. Not enough to fund their lifestyle. No emergency withdrawals. No spousal access. No borrowing privileges. Perfect. I want to help my son genuinely, but I won't fund their calculated crises anymore. We'll structure the charitable giving through your will revision and create a separate irrevocable trust for your son's portion. The trust terms would make the exploitation pattern you've documented legally impossible. I thought of Ruth's quiet generosity, her belief that wealth should create lasting value. This honors what we built together. Real help, not enabling manipulation. Paul Garcia arrived as my witness. After hearing my decisions, he smiled. Ruth would be proud. You're protecting your values and your son's character. The document signing took 40 minutes. Susan explained each provision as I initialed pages, the charitable bequests, the trust structure, the protection mechanisms. Each signature felt like reclaiming control I hadn't realized I'd lost. Your family won't know about these changes unless you tell them, Susan explained. But when the time comes, the legal structure will prevent any future financial exploitation. Walking out of that downtown office briefcase containing my new legal protection, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 4 years: complete control over my financial future. My legacy would honor Ruth's memory and create genuine value, not enable calculated greed. I called Marcellus on Wednesday morning, my voice carrying the same calm authority I'd once used to quiet restless lecture halls. I need to see you and Kalia this evening. 6 o'clock. We have important family matters to discuss. Dad, is everything okay? You sound so formal. Everything is perfectly clear. I'll see you both at 6. I spent the afternoon arranging my living room like a courtroom. 2 chairs facing my leather recliner. The coffee table cleared, except for a manila folder containing copies of my new legal documents. The late afternoon light slanted through my windows, illuminating the space where I would finally reclaim my dignity. They arrived at 6:15 Kalia, carrying an expensive bottle of wine and wearing her brightest smile. Theron, you look wonderful. Doesn't he look wonderful, Marcellus? She kissed my cheek with theatrical warmth. We've been so excited about spending more time together as a family. Please sit. I gestured to the chairs I'd positioned. We have significant matters to discuss. Marcellus shifted uncomfortably. Dad, you're making this sound ominous. I prefer the term clarifying. I opened the manila folder. Let's begin with your recent interest in my social connections. Kalia's smile brightened further. Your literary friends seem fascinating. We'd love to get to know them better. Why the directness of my question caught her off guard. Well, because families should know each other's friends. Family, I repeated the word slowly. An interesting concept. Let me share what I've discovered about our family dynamic. I pulled out the first document, my financial analysis spreadsheet. Over the past 4 years, you've requested financial assistance 16 separate times. Total amount, $127,000. Markellis's face went pale. Dad, we've always been grateful. Each request followed the same pattern. Urgent contact, emotional appeals, promises of changed behavior. Each payment followed by temporary family warmth, then gradual withdrawal until the next crisis. Kalia's smile was beginning to strain. Well, families help each other through difficult times. Difficult times that coincidentally aligned with your vacation photos, luxury purchases, and lifestyle upgrades. I turned to the next page. The roof repair that became a kitchen renovation, the medical emergency that coincided with your Cabo trip, the car crisis that resulted in a BMW. You're twisting things, Kalia said, her voice sharpening. I'm analyzing data. Something I've done professionally for 30 years. I looked directly at my son. When was the last time we had dinner that didn't follow a bank transfer, Marcellus? His silence was answer enough. Which brings us to recent developments. I pulled out the legal documents. I've made some changes to my estate planning. Kalia leaned forward, her mask slipping slightly. What kind of changes? 80% of my assets will go to charitable organizations, Austin Animal Center UT scholarships, literacy programs, causes Ruth and I believed in. 80%, Kalia's voice cracked. What about Marcellus? What about your family? Marcellus will receive 20% through a controlled trust. Monthly distributions sufficient for genuine needs. No lump sum access. No borrowing privileges. That's not fair, Kalia stood abruptly. That money should stay in the family. It will, with my son, not with you. Her face flushed red. You can't cut me out. I'm family too. Are you? I remained seated calm. Yesterday I was too embarrassing for your dinner table. Today you want my money. Tomorrow you'll want my connections. But you've never wanted me. Marcellus looked stricken. Dad, that's not true. When did you last call me just to talk, son? When did you last visit without needing something? The money was never yours, Kalia. I continued, my voice steady. And now it never will be. She exploded. You selfish old man. That inheritance belongs to your son. You can't give it away to strangers. I can. I have. It's done. Kalia grabbed her purse, her composure completely shattered. This isn't over. We'll contest this. We'll fight you. With what grounds? My mental competency is well documented. The legal framework is bulletproof, and the pattern of financial exploitation is thoroughly evidenced. She stormed toward the door, then whirled back. Come on, Marcellus. We're leaving. But my son remained in his chair, staring at his hands, his face a mask of shame and realization. Marcellus! Kalia's voice was shrill. Go ahead, he said quietly. I need to talk to my father. 3 weeks after Kalia's explosive exit from my living room, I found myself standing in the Austin Animal Center, surrounded by the sounds of hope and second chances. First time volunteering. Amy Wilson, the shelter coordinator, smiled as she handed me a volunteer badge. We always need help with the senior dogs. They're harder to place, but they have so much love to give. I followed her past kennels filled with eager faces until we stopped at the last cage. A 12-year-old golden retriever lay quietly in the corner, his graying muzzle resting on his paws. This is Buddy. His owner went into assisted living 6 months ago. Family couldn't take him. Amy's voice softened. He's been waiting ever since. I knelt by the kennel door. Buddy lifted his head, his brown eyes meeting mine with a recognition that went beyond species. 2 souls who'd been abandoned by the families they'd loved unconditionally. Can I take him for a walk? That first walk became daily visits. Buddy and I developed a routine morning walks around the shelter grounds, afternoons sitting together in the quiet corner of the adoption area. Neither of us was looking for anything dramatic, just companionship, just someone who understood that loyalty shouldn't depend on what you could provide. You're going to adopt him, aren't you? Amy said after my 10th visit. We're adopting each other. The paperwork took 2 days. Bringing Buddy home felt like completing something I hadn't realized was broken. He settled into my house with the quiet dignity of someone grateful for a second chance. My memoir research led me to the Austin Central Library, where I spent afternoons in the local history section. That's where I met Maristelle Vera, the head librarian, who approached my table with a stack of books about Texas literary history. Professor Veilhart, I'm Maristelle. I heard you were researching Austin's intellectual development. These might help. Our conversation started with books and evolved into something deeper. Maristelle had lost her husband 2 years earlier, understood the strange geography of grief and healing. She loved literature with the passion of someone who devoted her life to connecting people with stories that mattered. You should write this, she said one afternoon, reviewing my research notes. Austin needs someone to tell the story of how ideas shape the city. I'm considering it. Consider faster. The world needs more stories about finding purpose after loss. Buddy seemed to approve of Maristelle greeting her with the tail-wagging enthusiasm he reserved for people who understood that love wasn't transactional. The letter from Marcellus arrived on a Tuesday, handwritten on simple stationery. Dad, I've been thinking about everything you said, everything I've done. You were right about the pattern, about the manipulation, about how I let Kalia turn our relationship into something calculating and cold. I've left her. I'm staying with a friend, seeing a therapist, trying to understand how I became someone who would betray his own father for money I never needed. I don't want your inheritance, Dad. I want your forgiveness. I want to earn back your love, not inherit your money. If you're willing, I'd like to try being your son again. The real kind, the kind who calls just to talk. Marcellus. I read the letter 3 times before calling him. Dad, his voice was tentative, hopeful. Would you like to meet Buddy? Our reconciliation happened slowly, carefully. Coffee meetings that gradually became dinners, conversations that started with apologies and evolved into genuine connection. Marcellus began volunteering at the animal shelter, finding his own path to healing through service. I forgot who I was, he told me one evening as we walked Buddy through Zilker Park. I forgot that being your son was the best thing about me. 1 year later, my memoir, Austin Minds: How Ideas Built a City, hit the bestseller list. The book launch party was held at the Austin Public Library, surrounded by friends who valued ideas over assets. Maristelle stood beside me as I signed copies Buddy at my feet, greeting admirers with the dignity of a dog who'd found his purpose as a therapy animal for other seniors. Marcellus helped coordinate the event, his pride in his father's accomplishment, genuine and unencumbered by calculations about personal benefit. You did it, Dad, he said as the evening wound down. You found your real family? I looked around the room at Maristelle organizing books, at Amy Wilson discussing Buddy's therapy work, at former students who'd become successful adults, still crediting their old professor with shaping their thinking. We all did, I said. We all found where we belong. True family, I'd learned, wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about choosing to value each other for exactly who we were, not what we could provide. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you got to start over and build it right. Looking back on my journey, I realized that sometimes God puts us through trials to teach us our true worth. I spent 4 years funding manipulation because I confused love with obligation, family with transaction. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you've lost $127,000 and your dignity to recognize when you're being used. The signs were always there: contact that coincided with financial need, warmth that disappeared after bank transfers, family dinners that required payment in advance. True story, I thought buying their love would keep them close. Instead, it taught them I was valuable only for what I could provide. God had to show me through genuine friends at Lake Travis what real appreciation looked like: people who valued my mind, not my money. These grandpa stories aren't just about one professor's awakening. They're about recognizing that authentic relationships don't require payment plans. When Buddy chose to love me without conditions, when Maristelle appreciated my intellect without agenda, when Marcellus finally wanted my forgiveness instead of my inheritance, that's when I understood God's plan for true family. The hardest lesson: sometimes protecting your legacy means protecting it from the people you love most. My charitable giving honors Ruth's memory while ensuring our values create lasting impact. The controlled trust gives Marcellus support without enabling manipulation. True story. Real family doesn't ask what you can give them, they ask what they can give you. Grandpa stories like mine should serve as warnings. Don't let generosity become exploitation. Don't confuse enabling with helping. God blessed me with a second chance at 62. Buddy taught me about unconditional love. Maristel showed me intellectual companionship. Martellus learned to value relationship over inheritance. True story. Your worth isn't measured by your bank account. It's measured by the authentic connections you build and the values you uphold. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced similar family dynamics? How did you handle financial manipulation from loved ones? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring grandpa stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Your story could help someone else find their way back to authentic relationships.